What's going on, everybody? It's your man, DJ K-Man, a.k.a. Darryl. Right now, we are on the porch. It's going to be a new podcast we got going on. We follow the journey. We talk about the movies, the experiences with filmmaker Tom DeNucci. Every week, we're going to talk about a different movie that he was either in, wrote, directed, or starred in. All the funny stories that happened during that time. Just basically his adventures. And I'm going to be here kind of guiding the ship, asking the important questions, what the world wants to know about the film industry and these specific movies. And we'll also hopefully have some great interviews from people in the movies, around the movies, as we go forward. Who knows how many episodes it'll be, because, we always making movies. So we're limitless. So we're going to be here until we're not here. With that, Tom DeNucci.
What's up, everybody? Darryl, it's so good to have you here on the porch.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a nice porch.
Thanks, man. And I'm so glad that, we had some leaf blowing that was going on across the street. That seems to have subsided. And now we're ready to get to business.
He's done fucking cutting his grass at noontime on a...
Yeah, he's got nothing going on a Friday other than, a little bit of yard manicuring. But we're happy that stopped. And, we're here on the porch. It's really cool to be doing this show from the porch because this is kind of like, been my home base for a long time now. And this is where I write all my scripts. This is where I, do all my conference calls and we prep the movies. I've had actors stay here. I've had, almost every star that I've worked with in any movie has, had some porch time at one time or another. So it's kind of a cool place. It's a place that, like, I like to somehow incorporate into my work, whether it is, in pre-production or whatever. So it's good to be here. It's good to be doing the show from here. It's great to have you on the show. And, a lot of people have been asking me, like, when I do a lot of these film seminars, and I'll do a lot of talks at colleges and film schools and festivals, and a lot of times the first question that I'm asked is, how'd you get into this? How'd you get here? Like, what did you do to get into the movie business? Because it's one of these industries where there's no real set path, right? It's not like being, if you're going to be an accountant, you probably go and you work for you go to college to be an accountant, and then you go find some firm that's looking for an accountant. You find some ads in the paper, boom, you're there. You don't find too many ads in the paper for, like, hiring director for a movie, or hiring actor or whatever it may be. So it's kind of a weird path, and it's one of those questions that a lot of people ask. So I figured, what, we're gonna dive into the world of podcasting as it is. Let's make this show about how I got here and some of the crazy things that have happened along the way. I met a lot of really great people, got to work with a lot of cool people that I think all of you might find interesting and fun along the way.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear some of these stories, because as someone who has always thought about acting, but then for whatever reason never went anywhere, or trying to get into, like, voiceover work and all that, I don't know. So even as a co-host on a podcast, I'm gonna be soaking it all up and learning a little bit. Because my experience comes from the radio side, which again is one of those things where you just go to the website of the station you want to work for and apply.
Right. Yeah, you get an internship or something,
and work for free a bunch, and eventually you're there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not too different in the movie business, but it's just there's so many different ways that equation can happen. That's what we're going to get into. And for me, it's kind of funny. I guess the beginning, we start where a lot of people start, and it's high school, man. It was kind of a funny time for me. I don't know about you, but I was not a great student in high school, and I got a lot of D's, a lot of hey, you're in jeopardy of failing, and if you don't graduate, if you don't pass this class, you might not graduate or whatever. There's a lot of those letters coming home. And I just, like, never found anything that I like to do. And then, 11th grade, you're filling out your classes for, like, the next year, and you're going to decide, like, I'm going to take English 3 or, geometry, whatever it is. So for me, there was this girl that I was kind of crushing on, and she was looking at this video production class, and I was like, oh, so what are you looking at signing up for next year? She's like, I'm going to do video production. I'm like, oh, I'm into that too. Like, yeah, that's cool. Like what's that all about? But she's like, oh, it's cool. It's like, it's like film and stuff like that, and television. And cool. So I went to my guidance counselor, and I'm like, yeah, listen, sign me up. I wanted to have 18 studies senior year, but maybe we take like 2 of those studies and make it this video production class. Well, okay, sounds good, Tom. Sign me up, and I there I am. Like the next year, it's like the first day of school, going to my video production class. At the time, it was taught by one of my assistant football coaches, a guy by the name of Jay Jones, who's still over there at Cranston West. Awesome guy. So I was kind of like, oh, this is going to be easy anyway. One of my football coaches is teaching it. Like, he's going to be pretty easy on me. But then I look around, that girl's like not in the room.
Wow, did she change schools?
No, it was like a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday kind of deal.
Oh, okay.
So like I got the other class. So I'm pretty fucking bummed about this. Like, right, I'm like, really? Like, I signed up for this, and I got to do this whole thing. So, we get into it, and I met this kid named Phil Valois, who, like, shout out to Phil Valois. I don't know where Phil is today. I haven't seen this guy in a long time. But Phil was this kid who was, you ever meet someone who's, like, really ahead of their time? Like, this kid was, like, into music and fashion trends. That, like, he was wearing, like, punk rock and, like, skinny jeans, like stuff when, like, nobody was doing it. Had, like, just everything about this kid was, like, advanced. Like, he could have walked down... In 1999, he could have, like, walked down the street today and, like, been totally in fashion. Like, he was just ahead of his time. Great artist, really great musician. Just a cool kid. So he was kind of like my buddy in the class, and we kind of, like, partnered up on projects. So, like, first week you're partnering up.
Right.
And we start writing this movie called Satan's Little Helper, which is this, like, kind of demonic... dark comedy about a disgruntled North Pole elf who gets fired by Santa Claus, and he's like, fuck everybody, I'm gonna destroy Christmas, and he finds a group of teenage Christmas partiers and decides to get a little payback on Santa Claus by killing them all.
Nice.
And it's called Satan's Little Helper. So we start writing this thing, and sure enough, had no clue how to do it. We didn't know how to do anything. The only concept of making a film came from what we saw in movies, what we saw in behind the scenes, documentaries, whatever. We just kind of went for it. I grabbed my dad had this new video camera because he was all excited, like he got it for like some vacation trip that we went on. And I was like, yeah, Dad, we're gonna borrow that video camera. And of course, my dad was always like pretty chill about that stuff, and let me have at it. And we made this movie that was like pretty fucked up for like 17-year-old kids. It was like, it was funny, and that's what like made it like digestible. It was light, but it was gory. It had blood effects. Like I did everything from. It's funny.
Packets.
Yeah, we did the whole like. Well, no, like it was beyond that. It was pretty cool, man. Like my dad had a lot of access to like medical gear and medical tubing and things like that.
Nice.
So like we built like some pretty sophisticated rigs that would like someone gets slashed in the throat and then a jet stream of blood would like shoot out. And so for 17-year-old kids, it was way beyond ketchup packets. It was like we were doing stuff that like was pretty advanced for our time. And we put together this movie and we screened it for everybody, and the class was kind of like blown away by it. Like they were laughing, they were reacting to all the beats. And I remember like the end of the class, like Jay Jones kind of looked at me, a coach there, he's like DeNucci, talk to me after class. And I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. He's not pleased about the blowjob references or the goriness nature. It's probably rated R, and there were younger kids in the class too, so it's like there's 15-year-old kids watching this thing. And so I went to see him after, and he looks at me and he's like, dude, that was fucking awesome. And I don't know exactly if that was his exact words, but it was something like
that.
He loved it. And it was basically like, in not so many words, said, like, you're really good at this. Like, you need to do this beyond just, messing around with your dad's video camera. Like, you can go to school for this stuff. And then I talked to Phil about it, and Phil was like, yeah, dude, I'm going to New England Tech for film and, video production. And like, at the time, like, I wasn't like this idiot kid. I just, like, didn't think of it. Like, I was like, you can go to school for that.
Right.
Like, yeah. I was like, wow. Suddenly I'm like, this is like a whole new thing that, like, I can embrace and, like, I can, like, do, and, like, it's respected. Like, you're a filmmaker. Like, that's something that I can, like, really, like, wrap my head around. Like, I've always been an artist. When I was a kid, my mom took me to, like, RISD summer courses, and I love to draw. I love to paint. And now it kind of clicked in my head that, like, this is just a new form of art that I can embrace, so that got me really excited. And I remember that year I started to really become, like, a sponge for, like, film, and I started, like, doing all the things that, like, newbies that are just getting into film do. You watch every Kevin Smith movie,
right?
You watch every Quentin Tarantino movie, you watch the Scorsese filmography, and I just started, like, eating it up. And then, sure enough, like I said, I didn't have the best grades in the world, but, New England Tech was a place where you could it was kind of like a place where you could go and give yourself a second chance at, getting an education. And they had this program, and, sure enough, I signed up, and I was at New England Tech, like, a couple months later, once I had graduated, next year, here I am, I'm, 19 years old, and just, like, surrounded by, like, people that,
that all want to make movies.
All want to make movies, and they love it. And, in fact, I probably knew a lot less than most of the kids, because most of those kids knew they wanted to make movies since they were probably 10 years old, like,
right.
I was kind of knew it all this in a way. And I remember just loving the fact that, I'm in this environment where I can really thrive. And it's funny because I didn't really have any idea about acting at that point.
Did you want to be an actor first, or did you want to be more of a writer first?
I really think I wanted to be a writer-director. Directors were cool to me. Those were the guys that I kind of idolized. And then at New England Tech, it was one of these things where you're paired off in these small groups, and you got to make a little video or a little, whatever it may be, a little project. And it's tough when it's like, hey, who can I get at 7:45 in the morning to show up with various wardrobe choices and know that they're going to
right.
actually memorize their lines? And by the way, I can't pay them anything. So out of necessity, I started just, like, putting myself in my own little videos and whatever it was. And then I had a teacher by the name of Tom Strolla, who I still get to see once in a while when I go back to the school to do things. Shout out to Tom Strolla. He came up to me at the end of one of these, studio classes where I was, like, playing some crazy character, right. whatever it was. And he went up to me, and again, this is one of those moments where I thought he was, like, about to, like tear into me. He's like, hey, this is an acting class. And I was like, oh shit, like, am I, like, putting too much time into, like, that side of things? And he's like, no, I didn't mean it like that. Like, you're a pretty good actor, and he used to do advertising in New York.
Oh, nice.
And part of, like, what he had to do was, and I'm talking, like, big advertising. He used to work for a company called McCann Erickson, and they would do, NyQuil and, like, huge contracts for big companies. So part of that was casting, so he had some experience casting, and he was kind of like, no, you're a pretty good actor, you're pretty good at it. And I was like, no shit. And I was like, so you ever think about taking, like, an acting class or something? And I was kind of like, no, but I'll, file that away. And that was just another little push, like, oh shit, like, maybe I could try this too. So then I started, like, putting a toe in that water too, and seeing, started reading about acting and reading all the, all the things that newbie actors do. You read, like, an actor prepares, and you do the Stanislavski stuff and all that, go down that rabbit hole. So I did all that stuff, and I started kind of preparing, and, felt really confident in school because I was able to kind of, like, put these pieces together. I'll never forget, there was, like one of the funny things that I did was, New England Tech was very much at the time, things have changed a little bit over there, but at the time they were more for, like, news production and documentaries and, technical films, right. Like how-to videos and things like that. Well, what ended up happening was we had a course towards the end of, like, your run there where it's like, okay, you got to find a client and you've got to make a project for a client. And I just was so fucking hell-bent on making movies. Like, that's all I cared about.
Right.
That I just said to myself, you know what? I'm going to find a client who wrote a script. and I'm going to have them be in need of a movie to be made. So I went to my best friend, Sam Kittel, at the time, and I said, hey, buddy, listen, you're going to get a call from New England Tech, and you're going to say that you wrote this script, okay, and that you need me to make it. And I put him on to this, this little maneuver that I was doing. So the school calls and be like, are you Sam Kittel, and you wrote the script Tim's Hereafter, and you'd like it made, and Tom's going to make it for you, and yep, and okay, you just have to fill out these, like, this little evaluation form, and, call us on this date and let us know how it's going, and okay. So I wrote the script, and then I went and I shot it, and, like, I made, like, a short film, like, on all, my first, like, real, putting everything I had into it at the time.
Nice.
Short film. And it did really well, won a bunch of awards at the school, and I felt, like, all jacked up, like, ready to, like, get after it. But then you graduate, and then there's this, like, great feeling of now what? Like, now what now what do I do? Like, okay, great. I was, maybe, like, one of the best at my school in that little group of whatever, 50 or 100, other filmmaker kids. But, like, now what do I do? And that was kind of like this scary feeling that I got, right after.
You have to decide what you're going to do. You're going to, like, go to theater, or you're going to just try to make your own movies, or you just go to, like, New York or Hollywood or wherever they're making movies at that time.
That was the thing, man. Do I make the move? And naturally, what does everybody want to do when they get out of college? You want to make money, right?
Right.
Money was the first thing that I was thinking about. I had bills to pay, I had things to do. So I started a business with my friend Sam, who covered for me and said that he wrote the script for my school project. And we started this business called Ace Productions. And we specialized in wedding videos, wedding photography, any kind of, photography, or did a lot of game film for, like, football teams, like a high school football game film, or this kid thinks his son's going to go to college to play hockey. Hey, can you go to a few games and put together a tape for my son? Highlight reel, yeah. We did all that shit. And it was cool. We were doing okay. We were making a little money. But the truth is, man, we were kind of, like, young. We were only, like, 21, 22, running a business. We did a lot more, like, hey, we'll go to work later. Let's get in a game of Madden quick before we go to work, and, hang out on the couch and whatever. And, like, the business was suffering, and I was finding that I was spending a lot of time partying and, like, not doing what I'm supposed to do.
You're 21.
During the hours. Yeah, exactly. I was doing a lot of 21 things. And my friends and I would kind of, like, just, like, sit around all day long and watch random, really shitty horror movies. Like, there's just, like, a lot of schlock. This was, like, probably, I don't know, 2006, 2005, 2006. Seems like it was a time when they were just, like, cranking a lot of shit out. And, people were embracing it. And, like, the stuff that was getting over, like, I would watch, and I'd just be the guy who was, like, sitting on there, like, shitting on everything, being like, man, that's dumb. This should have been like this. How come they did that? I must have been, like, fucking horrible to watch a movie with at the time. Like, that, like, my friend Sam, if you ever listen to this, like, thank you for, like, sitting there and putting up with that for that year. But, a lot of kids take a year off after school to travel. I took a year off to, like, sit on my friend's couch and drink Jack Daniels and
watch
horror movies or whatever. So basically, I finally said to myself, I got, like, almost, like, motivated, inspired, whatever. I was, like, inspired by all this bullshit I was watching. I said, you know what? I could do this. I was like, I could totally, like, write a concept like this. This isn't that crazy. I had taken obviously, there were some screenwriting courses at New England Tech. Let's do it. So I started putting together some pieces, and I started kind of creating the early sketches in my mind for what would become self-storage. I noticed that all these movies that were really getting over were one location, and they were, like, 10 characters, a bunch of kids trapped in an environment, like, and
right.
Shit goes down. Like, I was starting to really break down the formula. So I started, cranking on my own script. And then, meanwhile, like, I'm still thinking, like you said, like, do I go to New York? Do I go to LA? Like, what am I going to do? Now I started this business with my friend, and, we're working at it, like, every other day. We're not really working as hard as we should be. But we still started a business. I still put my quote-unquote life savings into this thing, whatever it was. You know, it was probably like a few grand, whatever we scraped together to buy some equipment, pay some rent. Had like a little storefront.
Nice.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. You know, we had a couple of big parties in the storefront, which were, you know, we were more concerned with like throwing a really sick party outside of our own storefront. Be like, oh, we can smoke in here, right? Yeah, it's ours. You know, like that. We were just dumb and really like too immature to like have a business, but like we were having fun. And then finally, in some classic Rhode Island fashion, my dad, you know, talks to me all day, and he's like, "What are you doing? You know, what are you gonna do? What are you thinking?" Like, real plans. I think he could start to see that, like, you know, the financial side of our business wasn't wasn't really proving to be a success.
Right.
So basically, he's like, "Listen, you know," he's classic Rhode Island. He's like, "I work with a guy who knows Michael Carenti's hairdresser." Michael Carenti, if you don't know, he's a filmmaker who's also from Rhode Island. He's made some movies, and he's had a lot of success in the business. And he's like, "You know, you should write him an email. I think I get his email address." And I'm like, "All right, Dad, okay," you know, and here we go. I write this, like, you know, squeaky clean, "Hello, sir, I just graduated from film school, and I would love to work as to any capacity that I could and help out, whatever." I wrote the email, and I heard fucking nothing for a long time. You know, like, weeks and weeks go by, and maybe a month goes by, and finally I follow up one more time. I'm like, "Hey, just circling back, if you need any help, you know, squeaky wheel gets the grease bullshit." And I had my phone number that I left in the email. And then finally one day I get this fucking phone call from a random New York number. I was sleeping. It seems like fate knows to, like, any big calls I've ever gotten in my life. I'm a big nap guy. People are going to find out.
I nap every day.
Yeah, like, I sleep 4 hours a night. I'm a weird guy. I sleep like 4 hours at night, little night shift, rock and roll during the morning, do my thing during the day, and then, like, late afternoon, nap time, go down for like an hour, and then I'm ready to rock and roll for the evening.
I'm 3 to 5. 3 to 5:30.
That's a nice nap.
Day, yeah.
If I can do that, I'll do it. Don't get me wrong. That's a nice nap time right there. So I'm in the middle of my nap, and I get this call from a New York number. At the time, nobody from New York was calling me. So I'm like, oh shit, you know, I kind of wipe my face and, you know, try to clear my throat, pick up the phone. It's Michael Carenti. He's like, "Hey," and I could tell he was in the car, he was driving. I was like, "This is so cool. He's like a filmmaker. He's driving in a car and talking on a cell phone." And I'm like, "Hello? Yes?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got your email a while ago. Listen, I got this movie coming out. It's called Brooklyn Rules. I'm promoting it in Rhode Island. I want to make a big splash in Rhode Island. I need some kids to be on a street team to help me, get the word out. You interested in doing something like that?" I'm like, "Absolutely. Yeah, let me know. You tell me." So, boom, just like that, I go meet him, you know, and a couple weeks later, I meet him at this office that he'd kind of picked out. It was an old bread store. It was a fucking bakery that was just abandoned. And, you know, he had rented some office space there, and right on Atwells Ave, Federal Hill, Providence. Shout out to Providence.
Hashtag label out.
Yeah, exactly. Right there on Federal Hill. I walked in, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I met Michael. And I met another guy by the name of Ryan Murphy, who I still work with occasionally to this day. He actually was a producer on my last film, Vault. Shake hands with these guys, and okay, in my mind, I'm like, this is it. I'm working with a real deal filmmaker. Like, what do you need me to do? And it was cool, man. It was a lot. It was everything from, like, you know, okay, like, we're in this old bread store. Like, let's get this place into shape. Sweeping the floors, you know, putting up posters, getting our little HQ set up, going around with Michael and putting up banners to promote the movie. And it was really cool. Like, I found, like, right away he was giving me a lot of responsibility, and I was, like, getting to do some shit that, like, you know, felt like I was an insider.
Right.
And everybody wants that feeling. You know, whatever business you get into, you want to be on the inside, right?
Absolutely.
So we put the show on. Brooklyn Rules had a nice little Rhode Island premiere, and you know, things were going well. And I had this internship going, and the next thing you know, I was kind of like his full-time assistant, myself and this guy Ryan. I mean, we were like his two guys. You know, we each had our own little skill set, and you know, it was everything from, you know, emails and, you know, driving around with him, and, you know, like, making sure that his schedule's together, and, oh, you got to call this guy at this time, you got to call this guy at this time, you know, standard intern stuff. right down to, grunt work. Like, we'd occasionally, like, take his stuff to the laundry, whatever you have to do. I mean, and I'm not knocking it, man. There's a lot of, like, Karate Kid-esque stuff to that, It's like sometimes you've got to do all of the bullshit tasks when you're coming up as an intern, because it's like those things still need to happen. Right. It's like you'll get to do the fun things, but, like, it sounds like, wow, what are we making us do this for? But it's like, well, no, like, he's doing that because he's got to do something else. His time's too valuable at that moment. So you are really helping out by even doing something that seems really simple and stupid. So we were doing it all. And then there was my favorite thing that I got to do. My specialty was I was the script reader. I was the creative guy. So a guy like Michael, especially at the time, he was getting probably 5-6 scripts a day.
Wow.
So, and this is from everyone from his agents to managers to, just random people like, hey, I got this script about it, whatever, check it out. So at the end of the week, we'd have like, a dozen or two scripts, a pile of them. And he started pitching them off to me, and he saw that, like, I remember the first script he handed me, I was like, I felt like I was like reading something for like my SATs, and I read it so clearly and so like took notes, and like it was a test, like I was going to be tested on this. I read it pretty quickly and I got it done in a couple hours, and I think he saw that and he was like, oh, okay, this guy is going to give me, they call that coverage in the business. You'll hear that a lot of times, like the script got coverage. What coverage means is it means that somebody read it, they basically put together like a Cliff's Notes so that another person could read your coverage and not have to read the whole script, and they could read your coverage, and off your coverage they could know what's good about it, what's bad about it, where it needs improvements, key characters. So you could essentially have a conversation with somebody without reading their script, but you read your assistant's coverage on the script. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So a guy doesn't have to spend 2 or 3 hours reading a script, he spends 10 minutes reading the coverage. So I was putting together coverage, basically. And Michael saw that, and he started just pitching me scripts, and I would be probably reading, like, I think on my best day, I probably read, like, 3 scripts a day, just like, and by reading these scripts, I'm learning how to write scripts, and keep in mind, I'm actively writing one at the time, too, so it's like, I'm deep in it right now, and after a few months, I was, like, the happiest kid in the world. I was like, this is amazing, I'm getting to read scripts and doing my thing, this is awesome. The money wasn't there. There was no, it was an internship, but it didn't matter to me because at the time, like, what did I need money for? I'm 20-something years old. Like, what I needed was to learn how to write scripts, to learn how to get a foot in the business. So then things started to really change when my script self-storage started to get talked about a little bit more, and there'd be a little more structure. And producer who I still work with and still talk to just about every day, he's my mentor. We're going to hear his name a lot on this show because there's no question I wouldn't have my career without the guy, and that's Chad Verde. So Chad Verde comes into the picture, and he's making a movie with Michael. Michael's producing it, Chad's producing it, Michael's eventually going to potentially direct it at the time. And I get in the mix, I meet Chad, my script starts getting talked about, self-storage, greatest thing about it, its best asset is you could say it in a sentence, it's about a bunch of kids that party at a self-storage facility, and the party goes horribly wrong. It's like, it's right there. Like, you can kind of already tell. You can already tell where that movie's going to go. So people would hear that pitch, like, oh yeah, it's about a self-storage party that goes terribly wrong because they discover the serial killer's also been hiding bodies there. Perfect. This is awesome. So it got over real fast. And at the time, they were trying to make some horror movies. So basically, Michael and Chad talked, and before you know it, Chad really got behind self-storage, and he loved it, and he wanted to be a part of it. And about, a year later, maybe this is now like maybe a year or 2 years into my internship, whatever you want to call it, I've got Chad Verde legitimately looking at my script to potentially option it. And I remember we sit down, we have a meeting, and for the first time in my life, because really, aside from my bum business that made $20 profit, probably had the best day. I never made any money in my life. It was nothing at that time. It was nothing but I'm probably 24 at this point, sitting at a meeting with a guy who's as they say, could like literally buy and sell me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Could like purchase my bot, like could purchase me.
But also, you're about to make your first real
and he's like
industry money.
Gonna do business with me, and we sit down and we negotiate a deal, and he's optioned my script, and I'm basically gainfully employed in the film business after 2 years of interning and all that other bullshit.
Now,
here we go.
When they option your script, does that mean it's definitely going to get made, or does it just mean that they're interested?
So that's a good question. Basically, that just means that Chad, at the time, basically owned the material.
Okay.
And it's like a watermark for him. Like, he stamped it. That's his now. So basically, like, not that I would have, but, like, I couldn't take that anywhere else. I couldn't go make it anywhere else. It's his for the taking. And usually they'll have, like, I think this had like a 2-year date on it, or a 1-year day, or whatever it may be. So it's not a guarantee that they're going to make it. It's basically like nobody else can make it, and we want it. And obviously, most people, if they're going to do that, they have every intention of eventually making the movie. So basically, now I'm kind of in this position where I got to write that script, and I get to go to work every day with Chad and this team that he built. In a matter of, it went from me, Michael, and Ryan, kind of just going from, we worked in that bread store for a little while, and then we worked out of Michael's, like, he had a home office. Now we're working in, I'm going to sound like a real Rhode Islander, the old Cranston police station, which is no longer even there. They knocked it down. It was on Atwood Avenue. I'm sure everybody remembers where that was. You remember that place? It was across from. If anybody, it's funny. This is another
super Rhode Island right now.
Super Rhode Island. It's across from where the Hollywood Video used to be. It really is. It really is. So basically, Chad had rented that building. It was a really cool building. Now, keep in mind, defunct police station, right? So what do you got? Big, lots of offices, loading dock,
some cells,
multiple entries. It was actually like the perfect place to set up a production facility. It was like you could have designed a better building. So we moved in there, and we're all set up and ready to go, with the intentions of filming a movie called Incubus, that was going to be the first movie that Chad's company puts out, and it's a horror movie that takes place at a police station. So it all made sense. We were where we should be.
Absolutely.
And, I was fortunate enough to be able to get a part in Incubus as well, just from, like, hanging around. Like, that's one of those things where, a lot of times you'll hear, like, actors have a funny journey, too. Like, sometimes, like, they didn't even mean to act. But, like, when I was a kid, I was kind of funny, like, I was a little goofy, I wasn't afraid to say something stupid or whatever, and my goal was always to try to, like, make these guys laugh, I was basically, like, Spider and Goodfellas for them, like, I was, like, there, like, what do you need, guys, like, anything you need, and, I'd occasionally be, like, the court gesture, and, jester, that word always gets me.
Jester?
You don't want to make a court gesture. That could be something totally different.
True.
But yeah, it was just like, I was kind of just like, very young and just like kind of stupid. So I'd say funny shit and they'd laugh, and it was one of those things where there was a role for like this goofy rookie cop named Pax in the movie Incubus, and he was just like a dumb young like goofy meathead, and like they were like, Tommy should play this part. It was like one of those kind of things. And it's like one of those moments where like everything was starting to click at the time in my life. Like I was like, this is amazing. Like I'm sitting here, I'm optioning to write this thing, and guys that make decisions to make films are like, yeah, this kid would be a great Pax, I'm like, what? Like, holy shit, this is like hitting the fucking movie lottery right now for a 24-year-old kid. So I'm writing away, and I'm excited. And I remember when we moved into the police station, the first thing everybody kind of did was find a little space, which can be your office, because there's so many fucking rooms in this place. It's gigantic. And I remember I found this, like, cute little nook. It was like a hallway. It was a glorified hallway between two big rooms, but it had like a nice bulletin board and a nice little quiet setup. And like, people are gonna think this is nuts. I don't really like windows. Like, I like being shut in, especially when I'm like working. Like, I don't want to see anything else outside or anything. I like to just be in my zone. So it was kind of shut in. There were no windows, and for an editing suite or for writing, that can be good sometimes.
No distractions. No
distractions, man. And I had this couch. Remember, I'm gainfully employed. I'm making some jack, right? So I buy a couch, right? I think that's a smart thing to do. Bought this like sick red leather couch. It was like super fucking loud, and I like put it in my office. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, I'm in my office now. I've got a couch. This is legit. I put up my posters, and I had like a cool Warriors poster. I had like, I'm an action figure guy. You're gonna learn that about me. I'm a big action figure guy.
There's a lot of action figures in here.
Yeah, we're surrounded by them right now.
Yeah, all the wrestlers.
Yeah,
and all the stormtroopers.
Yeah, a lot of Star Wars, a lot of wrestling.
Oh shit, you got the. Not to get off track, but one of our episodes of the Saturday Conversation that you've been on, we talk about ninja elephants. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is ninja elephants. And Iron Monkey was like, nah, they don't exist.
Oh, yeah.
They have he was on the Ninja Turtles.
You remember that guy?
Yeah.
That's so sick. Yeah, because he's a very obscure character. We're going to have to, eventually this show's going to have a video along with it. So we'd be showing you an image of this ninja elephant. That's but amazing. He's sick. Yeah, he's like
a witch doctor, and
he's got like half man arm, like half man body parts and half elephant. So he's got like a man arm, but then like an elephant hoof. So he can fuck you up from any direction, basically. But so anyway, so I'm in my office, surrounded by my action figures, my posters, my desk, all my shit. And hey, man, what do they say? Familiarity breeds contempt. Like after a while, like. Sometimes the same old jokes aren't funny anymore, and people can grow weary of you or whatever, just the thrill is gone or whatever. And, I don't know what it was, but at the time, like, I think Michael was just like over me, it was like he was over my shenanigans, sort of the goofy antics or whatever it was. And he needed an office for this new editing suite that was coming in, So I'm there chilling in my office. I'm on the couch. I'm writing self-storage, and he comes in and he's like, "Tommy, we need this office." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, we're putting an editing suite in here. Now, keep in mind, there's like 50 other rooms in this place. But
wow!
But he chose my cute little setup, adorable little office. So yeah, we need this. So, can you move your stuff out? I'm like, all right, well, where do you want me to go? He's like, just find another place, basically. And I'm like, all right. So I take my couch and I slide it about 5 or 10 feet into the main hallway. I take my little end table and I slide that right next to that, and I take my posters and I start hanging them up on the hallway. And I'm setting up shop right in the hallway. Right in the middle of the fucking hallway. I had a little coffee table. I lay out some magazines. I had a lamp. I found an outlet. So now picture in this massive police station hallway, tucked to the side of the hallway is me laying on the couch with my laptop, writing my script. But it's very much like a little, almost like one of those, like when you're in like a department store and it's like the fake little setup for a living room.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the fake setup for a living room in a hallway. It just looked really funny. So Chad's walking by, and he's going to his office, which was like right down the hall. And he sees me, and he stops, and he like does a double take, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing in the hallway?" And I'm like, "No, Michael needed my office." He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, they put an editing suite in there." And I was like, "He kicked me out." I'm kind of like playing up the card. And he just laughs because, it was fucking funny, man. I'm on a couch. I'm laying on a couch. I'm in the middle of a hallway. There's an end table. There's like mints laid out.
Just made yourself right at home.
Exactly, in the hallway. And he says, "Well, you know what? Why don't you grab your stuff and move your couch into my office?"
Nice.
I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, yeah, come on, let's go. So I pack up all my shit. I push my couch down the hallway. I nestle my couch right next to the wall there. And Chad had the big corner office. It was the chief's office.
Oh, nice.
It was at one time, so it had like this really cool, like blue plush carpet. It had its own bathroom. It had the windows all around the corner. It had this old school 80s wood paneling. So it was fucking tricked out. So there I was. Suddenly I was sitting with the boss. I was in the producer's office, writing my scripts. I was right there, and there's no better way to get close with someone and build a relationship than like you're working right next to them all day. And Chad and I just naturally liked a lot of the same stuff. We both liked sports. We followed a lot of the same teams. We could have those kind of conversations. Did you see that game last night? And it's one of those things where we just started clicking. We're both. He was raised in Cranston, growing up, and I was raised in Cranston. We're both Italian American guys from Cranston, No. So like we just kind of hit it off, and before you knew it, Michael and Chad eventually went their separate ways, and on the next movie, I ended up getting a chance to work on is this zombie movie, and I had a really sizable part in it. It was a really big part. It was called Infected, with Michael Madsen, William Forsythe, Christy Romano's in that movie. It was directed by a guy named Glenn Ciano. And basically it was a really exciting chance to now, like, I had a small role in the last movie. Right. Now this is a much bigger role. And it's with guys like Michael Madsen, who I've like looked up to and idolized since I was a kid, and he's in fucking Reservoir Dogs. Are you kidding me? Like he's a legend in my mind. That was one of those movies that I went back and dug up and watched when I was like first getting bit by like the film bug.
The film bug, right.
So it was like nuts that just a couple years later, like I'm playing his son. Keep in mind in this movie, I'm playing Michael Madsen's kid. So it's like it's a really crazy, surreal thing for me. We shoot the movie, and all goes well, so we think, but the first cut of the movie wasn't quite what the distributors wanted, and at the time they needed a new editor, and I kind of stepped up to the plate. And I remember I had this relationship with Chad where like we'd still been like hanging out even after that movie because we had some other projects that we were working on. Remember I had self-storage that I was writing for him, and was keeping in very close contact with him, and I heard the state of Infected, and I was like, well, listen, I really think I could do that. Like, I think I could fix this movie and, like, do what we got to do and change a few things around. So I changed a few things around, and the movie got resubmitted to the distribution company, and they were basically like, okay, this is getting there. You got to add some stuff, though. You need to add, like, 10 minutes of runtime. This movie was only, like, 75 minutes long. Oh. And a lot of times, yeah, like, there'll be a certain length that the movie needs to be. So basically, I was like, all right, no problem. And we put together a very small budget. I think it was like $2,500. I was like, give me like $2,500. And I hired a few people, a couple camera people, hired some actors, and got together some gear, very limited gear package. And I wrote a few scenes that we could insert throughout the movie. And we banged those scenes out all throughout 2 days. Cut them into the sequence, and a week or two later, distribution company's like, all right, we'll take it. And then that was kind of it. It was kind of like a way to solidify to Chad that, like, look, I can write, I can direct, and whatever else you need me to do, I'm ready to rock and roll. And then 3 months later, there we were. I was on set directing self-storage. That was in, I think, April, and then by July, there we were on set. We had Eric Roberts, we had
very nice
Jonathan Silverman, Michael Berryman. So
it was like about a 3 or 4 year arc then for you.
Yeah, that's right. It was probably like 3 years.
Nice. What would you say is like the hardest part about writing the script?
Well, the
writing a script in general? Is it like the idea, or is it more like the format?
I'd say the hardest part about it is, making sure that it has the right pace and it's really hard to keep people entertained these days.
Right.
We live in a world of 10-second, 15-second videos, your Instagram story.
Right.
It's like, you got quick little clips. That's how we get our entertainment now.
And that makes me mad if there are too many of them. I just skip the...
Yeah, when you just see a bunch of little dots at the top of
skip that one. I don't even watch that one.
Yeah, you're going to flip that shit. So it's one of those things where, like, it's hard to entertain people now for more than 2 or 3 minutes, let alone 90 fucking minutes. You gotta keep someone's attention for an hour and a half. So in order to do that, it's like, you gotta have a really well-paced movie. You gotta have characters that you care about. You should have a lot of elements that come together. So I think the hardest thing is, a lot of times writers will get away from the fact that, like, hey man, you just wrote like a 7 or 8 page scene. Like, that's like 8 or 9 minutes straight of just 2 people talking to each other. Like,
right.
That ain't gonna fly today. Unless you got 2 Academy Award winners, going toe to toe. You got Meryl Streep. Maybe you can make a 9-minute scene fly. She's talking to Daniel Day-Lewis. Okay, I'll buy that. But there's a lot of ways to kind of just keep the pacing up. So for me, it's about that, and a lot of times you just gotta like find the mechanics behind it. Like, I've got some styles, and maybe we'll get into this. Maybe eventually we'll do just a writing episode. That might be kind of cool. But I'll save that for our writing episode. But I've got a style that, look, it's not one of these things where, like, I can't promise that, whatever story you write is gonna be an instant hit. But I've got a method together that whatever your idea is, if you use this method, you'll at least be able to get to the finish line. Get that 90 pages out, get that 100 pages out, because I think that's the hardest part. Like, I've always found that, like, rewriting is a lot easier than writing. Getting that first 100 pages that makes some sense, that goes from point A to point B, that's the hard part. From there, crafting it, rewriting it, tweaking it, finding out which characters can be combined, which characters you can lose. Like, that's the skill set that really, like, that's where it really becomes, real. And you start having fun there. The hard part is getting that first draft out. So my method will get you to that first draft. I've got a method where you can break it down. It's like mechanics. The Tom and Mansky defensive drills for writing.
Excellent.
So we're going to get into that one.
We'll get into that down the line as well.
Yeah, man.
So that's the beginning of the journey. Tom DeNucci into the filmmaking business as an actor, writer, director, man of many trades when it comes to movies. So the next episode, we'll get into self-storage. Yeah, we're gonna pick it up right at self-storage, right at my mission into my first horror movie, the world of. And today's Friday the 13th.
Oh, that's right.
So it's kind of a nice day to embrace the horror vibe.
It's that Halloween vibe.
Get the pumpkin spice out. It's coming.
Oh man, I'm so not about pumpkin anything. Pumpkin pie and Entenmann's makes like this weird pumpkin donut-y thing
with the crumble. Does it have like a crumble to it?
So delicious.
I know what you're talking about, man. I could eat myself out of a room of that.
And
if I was trapped in a room.
Place there, Red Robin. They do I think it's sweet potato pie milkshake.
No shit.
It's fucking delicious.
I like the Red Robin's got a nice chicken sandwich. You would give that a whirl. You wouldn't think to get that there, but it's good. It's good.
I like the bottomless fries. Shout out to Red Robin. So next episode, we get into self-storage. The first, what would you call it, like a major movie or first?
Yeah, this was my first time actually having to direct actors that have been doing it like for a career. I had directed reshoots on Infected, but there was nothing like this. That was mostly local talent. This was like I'd have to go toe to toe with a guy like Eric Roberts, who has been nominated for an Academy Award.
Right.
So it's one of those things where you hear this in sports a lot of times, but like the difference in speed from like the college level to the pro level.
Yeah. it was like I finally got a chance to like see the speed change, and that's what we're going to get into next week. What's the difference between, getting thrown into a project and kind of just hacking it together but making it work versus like, okay, this is planned out. You've got several weeks of pre-production. Have at it. So we're gonna go right from pre-production through production all the way through post, and we might even have a cool guest who is in self-storage as well. So
excellent. So be on the lookout for that episode coming up. That's gonna do it for this episode of The Porch, coming to you live and direct from the porch with the man, the myth, the legend, Tom DeNucci.
All right, later guys. We'll see you next time.
Check y'all out.